Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to come to our celebration and reflection for Civic Leadership Academy. And right off the bat, congratulations and thank you to all of you for making it through. This has definitely been more, so we kind of advertise this as like an 11-week course, but I feel like this was way more than an 11-week course for you all for many reasons. One, mostly because you were supposed to start about a year ago and have been done not long after that, but because of the pandemic, obviously you stayed committed, started really long after you were meant to, and then we had holiday breaks and election drama and all of that kind of stuff that kind of prolonged our session beyond those main 11 weeks. So thank you all for sticking with us this far and for coming tonight to kind of close it out. This is going to be a pretty quick session. We won't take up the 2.5 hours. So I'm just going to say a few words and then we'll hear from our guest speaker, who is Corey Buckner. Corey is a former manager of the Office of Community Affairs and now the Western PA Political Director for SEIU, so super happy to have him joining us tonight. Then we'll go into a quick reflection activity, and I will attempt to send us into breakout rooms, which I haven't done before, so hopefully it goes well. So we can actually have some small group discussions, sort of reflect on some of the things that we've learned, and then come back, share out, and then we'll be done. And I'm not sure if we have any friends or family joining us tonight. I don't think we do, so I don't think that I need to reintroduce myself, so I will not do that. When we do have a little one here. When we were in person, this was much more of a exciting a place for people to connect, but that's okay. All right, so congratulations to you all, the Virtual Winter 2020-2021 Mayor's Civic Leadership Academy cohort. I'm very grateful to have met each and every one of you and to have learned from you in the best way that we could over Zoom. I am super grateful for all of the great things that you all do every day. You all bring a lot of interesting perspectives and priorities and backgrounds to this group. And I think it made for some really interesting discussions with our departments and directors and staff from across the city. In addition to everything that you already do, you gave 2.5 hours for over 11 weeks to learn about local government, which is not something that I think most people would do. You met with directors and staff from over 22 City of Pittsburgh departments. You met with elected officials like Mayor Peduto and Council President Teresa Kale-Smith, and you asked really thoughtful, powerful, challenging questions on behalf of your communities. And I know that the information that was shared out with you all will not stay with you all. Kind of the point of this is that hopefully this information can be shared with your neighbors and your colleagues and your community groups. Organizations that you're on the board of and things like that, to kind of, spread the knowledge and the insight across the city of Pittsburgh. So on top of that, you were also incredibly respectful and displayed a spirit of coordination to work to make the city a better place to live. I think that anytime we do the Civic Leadership Academy, it's kind of an honor system in terms of how these conversations go, especially when we're meeting with departments that, we might not always agree with all of their policies. We may think they should be doing better here or there, but I think that all of the conversations that we had were very respectful and civil, and I think it was pretty inspiring to me to be able to see that those kinds of conversations can happen in that way. And like I said, you stayed committed to CLA after being delayed for nearly a year due to a global pandemic. You also stayed committed to CLA in the midst of some pretty intense events that at times may have made civic engagement seem a little bit less meaningful. And you took what you learned back to your jobs, community groups, and neighbors. And hopefully we were able to share some of our own successes and events and information amongst each other as well. And of course, we did it all on Zoom, which is quite a feat, in my opinion. So now that Civic Leadership Academy is officially over, we'll be in touch with ways that you can continue engaging and working with the city of Pittsburgh through our online engagement platform, Engage PGH, which you should all be signed up with, in terms of public meetings and anything that's happening in your neighborhoods. We'll be sure to let you know now that we have your information and we're in touch with you. So we are really, 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 really grateful to have residents, whether lifelong or newer to the city, who are committed to their neighborhoods in the city of Pittsburgh, and we can't wait to see what you do next. So please keep in touch with us and let us know all the great things you're up to, and we will definitely do the same. And Giselle, can you go to the next slide, please? And this, I just can't not basically copy and paste what I put in my email to you all earlier. Just as some reminders, you are now subscribed to the Office of Community Affairs newsletter, and please let others know that they can subscribe it as well at newsletter.pittsburghpa.gov. We send this out monthly, and it has just tons of information about not just stuff that we've talked about here, but public meetings that are coming up, volunteer opportunities, updates, announcements, spotlights, all types of things from across the city of Pittsburgh department. And so it's a great way to stay engaged and stay up to date if you would like to continue working with the city of Pittsburgh in some capacity. This is a great place to get that information to be able to do so. And don't forget that community affairs, we are all over the city. We visit neighborhood community meetings on a nightly basis. That's the biggest part of our job, I would say. So if you are part of a community group and we are not visiting you and we're not with you, please let me know, and we'd be happy to stop by and talk about priorities. Please remember to take the exit survey, which is on our Engage PGH page. Like I said before, this is just something that we will use and really need to use in order to make our programming better, especially since we're going to be virtual again for our next cohort. I'm really looking for feedback about how we can make this more engaging. There's obviously a lot of barriers and limitations, but always room to improve. And along those lines, applications are open now for our next virtual cohort. So please help us get the word out if you enjoyed your experience here. Encourage your friends or neighbors to apply. Feel free to send a recommendation or two my way, and we'd be happy to have them. So people can apply at applycla.pittsburghpa.gov. And then I already said, please stay in touch. Let's stay friends. And follow us on social media. That's another great way to get updates, especially Nextdoor, which is super neighborhood based. If you are on Nextdoor, we post all of the press releases from public safety, Department of Public Works, and the mayor's office. So anything, project, construction, policy related, having to do with neighborhoods, that goes on our Nextdoor. So please follow us on there to stay in touch as well. And yes, Bill, that is a great idea, actually. Bill is asking, could we get a list of contacts for the class? Yes, so I will send an email to everybody and just say, if you don't want your information shared with the class, let me know. And if you don't let me know that you don't want that, then I will just put us all on a chain together so you can be connected. Does that sound good? Yeah, I was thinking actually that's a really good idea. That's something that we should definitely do. Okay, so with that, Giselle, I think we can take the PowerPoint down for a second so we can introduce Corey. Cool. Okay, so Corey has joined us tonight. Like I said, Corey is the former manager of the Office of Community Affairs, and the Western PA Political Director for SEIU. And he's here tonight to just share some words with us about civic engagement. Corey, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Leah. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the class, and I really feel bad for you guys. I mean, I think we all missed a lot of great opportunities to do things in person, and Civic Leadership Academy is one of those things that, you know, it definitely is a great opportunity to be able to go to all the different departments and go to the water treatment facility and do all these great things in person. And, you know, it's been a bad year, and hopefully, you know, sometime soon we'll be able to get back together again. It's also kind of nice because a lot of the things that Leah had just mentioned, it's kind of bringing me back to my time I spent in the mayor's office. For the past 3 years now, I've been Western PA Political Director for SEIU 32BJ. And essentially, we're a labor union that represents building service workers. We're the largest building service union in the country. And we have over 170,000 members along the Eastern Seaboard. These are security guards that you see walking downtown on a day-to-day basis. These are building janitors, custodial workers, cleaners, food service workers in school districts. And essentially what I do for work is I do the policy stuff. So, and work on elections. So, you know, last year was crazy. I'm sure you can only imagine what my life was like last year. I didn't have a life, but it was wild. And, you know, in the past few years, I've been able to work very closely with city council and the mayor's office on getting, as of recent, we worked on getting the emergency COVID paid sick days passed. So that was something that was pretty awesome that I got a chance to, you know, work with Mayor Peduto on. And right now we're working on paid sick days for the county as well to expand outside the city. You know, and we've gotten a lot of great people elected into office. So really love my job, but my passion is really, you know, my time I spent in the mayor's office. I met a lot of great people. And I had a lot of hats while I was in the mayor's office. Prior to being the manager of the Office of Community Affairs, I started my work in activism 10 years ago. And I'll just come out and say it, I'm 33, so 23 is when I got started. And I started off volunteering with SEIU. They knocked on my door one day and said, how do you feel about your community? How do you feel about your schools? You know, and I didn't realize they were organizing me at the moment, but that's exactly what they were doing. And they said, well, if that's how you feel, you should come march with us in the Labor Day parade. And from there, it ended up working on President Obama's campaign in 2012. I was the field organizer in the Mon Valley. Then I was the deputy field director on Mayor Peduto's campaign in 2013. And I was very fortunate and blessed. You know, I don't have a degree, so, you know, the mayor saw something in me and he took a chance on me and he brought me into his administration and I became his assistant. So if you met James at some point, he's always the guy that's going around town with the mayor. I used to be James, essentially, or James is now me. So, you know, that was an interesting job. I got to meet Shaka Khan and go to a lot of community meetings and get yelled at and, you know, follow up from everything from people being murdered to potholes needing filled. And, you know, one of the things the mayor said to me when I first started this job is he said to me, you know, you're not going to be able to help everybody. And I hope that's something that you learned while being in Civic Leadership Academy is that the city's not going to be able to solve every problem. But the one thing he told me is no matter what we can do, whether we can do it or not, everybody deserves a follow-up. Everybody deserves an answer as to whether or not you can do it or not. And I've kind of been trying to live my life that way since he said that to me in every job that I do. And, you know, one of the other things he said, you know, because I've heard all of his speeches, one of the other things he would say all the time, the role of city government is for you to not have to worry about that light turning green when you're at the intersection or it turning red. You shouldn't have to worry whether or not, you know, the water is going to come into your house. That's why we pay taxes, so that the city government can handle those things. Though I didn't do the like public infrastructure stuff while I was at the city, I got to work on a lot of great projects that that are really a passion of mine. I identify as gay, and so I led the LGBT efforts in the mayor's office. I was the coordinator of the mayor's LGBT advisory council, which was recently turned into a city commission. Got to ban conversion therapy on youth, worked with city council on that. We finally got our score as a city up to 100% with the Human Rights Campaign. I got to work on President Obama's initiative, My Brother's Keeper. And, where my best friends came from was community affairs, really. And, we got to roll out the Snow Angels program and the monthly newsletter. I was trying to figure out the newsletter, but eventually they figured it out after I left, and Snow Angels only got better. And, so there's a lot of great things that, I learned while I was in city government. And it took 4 years, that's how long I was with the city. And it took 4 years to understand how it works. And really the only way you figure it out is by actively being engaged outside and inside city government. So like, besides my day-to-day work when I was in, community affairs, I'm sure Leah has explained to you, it's like you go to the office 9 o'clock, 9:30, you stay there till 6, then you sit in a meeting for 2 hours, and that's every day of the week, and sometimes on the weekends. And you really don't get a break until everybody's on vacation in the summertime. And so my role was to, predominantly, because I'm from Garfield, in the city. I've been here my whole life. Lived in Penley Place when I was a kid, so I know the East Side really well. And so I went to all the East Side meetings in Homewood and Morningside and Lawrenceville and Bloomfield, and I learned a lot from attending those meetings. And beyond that, even though I did this for work, I also did it in my free time too. I was on the board of the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation for 5 years. We worked on community land trusts, and I did all this work in my free time, even when I was tired. And so it's really important after learning all this that you take this information that you've gained from CLA and you apply it in your communities. My time, the best time that I can spend is trying to help my neighbors who don't understand how things get done, and so I would recommend that, and that was one of the things that, like Leah wanted me to hit on, is like, what can you do after this? And I really think looking into your neighborhood organizations, you don't have to be on a board, but showing up to those meetings once a month is really helpful. The Nextdoor app, I had to get off of it, honestly, because it just it was annoying. People were complaining about everything. But, in the neighborhood meetings, that's really where stuff is getting done, and with your neighborhood organizations. Beyond that, like I've sat on boards for other smaller nonprofit organizations. Somebody said Nextdoor is the craziest version of social media. It truly is. It truly is. There's always a cat going missing. But yeah, also look for other nonprofits. Like it took me a while to try to figure out what it is that I enjoy to do. I worked on LGBT initiatives. I'm still doing that. I was appointed to Governor Wolf's LGBT commission. So I'm still doing that work, but not as much. Now I'm like, really my passion is labor. So I think it's something you're always figuring out what you like. And so, but you got to start somewhere. And, there's always nonprofits that need help, no matter where you go. Like they always need funding and they always need free work, and so if you can find nonprofits that fit in the scope of work that you want to do, or even in your free time, just stuff that you like to do, it's really important that you find a way to lend your support to that. I always tell myself, when I retire, all I'm going to do is volunteer, really, because, I don't want to work, but, I also want to stay active. And, And the other things that, I'm involved in is like the Democratic Party. I'm really involved in that. I'm a committee man, even though the Democratic Party doesn't always do much. It's something else that keeps me busy. So, I like, I just think it's important that you stay involved, and because, this opportunity of being in CLA, because I ran the class 1 year myself. We don't pick everybody in these classes. So always keep in mind, like, somebody missed an opportunity because you had one. And so, try to apply it afterwards. You know what I mean? So it's kind of all that's on the top of my head. I didn't really take notes or anything, but I'm willing to answer any questions or, talk about anything or anything like
Sure. Thanks, Corey. I'm giving you an emoji clap
that. Thank you.
for visiting us tonight. Does anyone have any questions for Corey? Okay.
Cool.
That's cool.
Well, congratulations, everybody. Again, I appreciate somebody allowing me to do something, because I'm stuck at home all the time. So, I'm on Twitter. It's Corey_Buckner. I'm not very active on that, but if you ever need to reach out, you can go on Twitter, Corey_Buckner. So
awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Corey. We really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
See ya. Bye. All right. Cool. So now we can move on to our reflection activity. So I'll read these out quickly before we move forward. And then I'll break you all into maybe 3 or 4 groups. So we'll actually get to talk to each other, which is something that we actually have not done this entire time. And I think that might be fun for us. So for our small group discussions, and we will post these questions into the chat so you can see them when you get broken into your weird teleportation rooms. So reflect on the presentations that we've seen in Civic Leadership Academy and try to identify recurring issues or themes, especially topics and situations that might have made you look at local government in a different way. Throughout those discussions, consider what you see that others might overlook, including what might be missing from the local conversation about how different systems operate. And there's 4 guiding questions in here that you can also use to kind of go off of. So what are 1 or more of the challenges that you have learned about city government or about a particular department? What are the most promising and creative solutions being implemented, and how could these efforts be strengthened? Given the information that you learned throughout the program, reflect on the relationship between the city of Pittsburgh and your community. Analyze how your role can impact that relationship. And was there something specifically that you learned about local government that you wished people in your community knew about? So let me really quickly copy and paste those questions into the chat so that you all can access them. So there are the guiding questions. And we're going to break out into the groups for about 10 minutes. And then we'll all come back and we can share out a bit. And by the way, if you're here as a guest of somebody, feel free to participate in these conversations and kind of throw your sense in. I'm sure it will be interesting to anybody. Okay, so do people want to share out from their groups, either representative from the group or just go ahead in general about some of the conversations you were able to have?
I'll share what we went over.
Okay, sure.
I thought it was good. People had different opinions, like how we learned a lot. And now when we hear our neighbors complaining about something, we can kind of take it with a grain of salt, realize the complaining is going to happen, but maybe help them and identify like the fact that some things may not be recognized yet, or that people need to actually get involved and do something other than just complain. I had made a point that I thought it was real impressive that almost every department was pursuing some type of accreditation, like a third party best practice type designation. And I thought that was cool. I also shared that I thought it was nice how every department was like trying to be more utilized, and be out educating the public or utilizing its assets in a better way. And I thought that was real positive. And I thought Corey mentioned that we may not have gotten like some info like on magistrates and how we're different than Philly and some other areas, which would be interesting. And we kind of wrapped it up on, the city county split and all that, and interest in all of us certainly doing something together, maybe some kind of project or volunteering with the next class. We would be up for that. Kind of seemed to be a consensus. That if I didn't miss anything with people in my group.
Great. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, usually the Civic Leadership Academy cohorts do kind of come together as a cohort to do a project, which is actually really cool. We didn't do that this time just because it was kind of a bad time for me to be managing that, and also kind of difficult to just coordinate virtually. But I think if that's feedback that we think that might be something that's possible for our next virtual cohort, I may try to do that. So that's really helpful feedback, Bill. Thanks. What about the second group? Do you know which groups you are? Giselle, I think your group was number 2. So whoever was with Giselle.
I will go for our group.
Okay.
We didn't get too in depth with the questions, but I think the consensus was generally that we're all appreciative of having taken this, and just it's opened up our eyes to all the different departments of city government, and everyone, with shortened amount of staff, like you're getting a lot of work done. And a few of us mentioned how like we work for nonprofits, and like we kind of were able to take the academy like with our work hats on and realize how that can help us in our careers and our current positions. But at the same time, kind of like what Bill said, take that information back to our neighbors and share, stuff that we learned with them as well, and kind of act as like, an extension of the government of just being more learned community members that can share the assets that we've gleaned from this and the information.
Yeah, thank you. That's the goal, I think. So that's really helpful. What about from group 3? I don't actually know who was in group 3. Or just anyone who knows that their group has not said anything yet.
Yeah, I guess I'll go for the group. I think we were in 4. We're just like noting out that it's cool to see their organizations like helping people like buy homes and get property, and trying to like an organization is dedicated to trying to like bring more equality in like home ownership and property ownership. So we thought that was pretty cool. We also were talking about how cool it was that the fire department was actively like reaching out to recruit like women in military service, trying to like actually go and recruit people with different backgrounds. It was pretty cool. Yeah. And I think some of the things that I was taking away is like how good this program is to really put faces to the body of government. And it's just like this wide organization that kind of like does things. But I think it's like, if you're not involved with the everyday, like, or being a part of the government, it can be tough to I guess to sympathize with it or like, you know, like understand it. Like seeing people and meeting people within the organization, it really gives it that human element that, you know, you feel like you can connect with. And it was good to see every person that we talked to in the department had like a passion, or they cared about the work that they were doing. You know, nobody seemed like they were disinterested in this, which is also really seems to be a really common stereotype about the government worker, if you will. And I was saying, like, having people reach out like that, having, you know, being a government, being involved in programs and trying to reach out and being reactive to situations that are going on, or the feedback that they get from community members, even asking those questions is definitely been good. And I think it's a huge step towards inspiring people to want to reach out, like reach back, you know, get involved and be a part of it also. You know, doing the whole like meet me halfway thing, you know, it's always been, it's definitely inspiring to see for sure. So yeah, that was just a couple of notes we had.
Cool, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that I think a large barrier to you know, an everyday resident in the city of Pittsburgh reaching out to city government is thinking that it is just going to kind of get like absorbed into this whole of nothingness, or, you know, whatever may happen, because you may not always see, you know, it might not always have the most tangible result immediately. And honestly, like there is some truth to that. Sometimes like there are things that, you know, that not every system is working perfectly. Sometimes you do need a little bit of an extra push, or, you know, whatever it is. But I think you're right that it is really helpful to kind of understand the systems that are behind that and the people that are behind that. There are a lot of passionate people at the city, you know, trying to make improvements, but also acknowledging that there is a long way to go sometimes. Yeah, thanks for your comments. Anybody else have anything to share just based on the questions or just in general?
I have one thing I think I was really struck by. I mean, I guess I'm not as young as I used to be, but I was like really surprised with how young so many of the department heads were. I guess I just always imagine like the heads of city departments are going to be 64-year-old white dudes who've been there forever. And like, I was just really surprised how young and in general so many of the people were.
Yeah,
Which like was really exciting. I mean, just if I'm not being clear, it was like exciting because I think there's like a youthful energy there, and there's a youthful like belief that we could do great things. Where I guess I just didn't expect that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's something that was true for a really long time about city government. And we definitely, I know at least in Pittsburgh, do have kind of like a wave of retirees, either recently retired or retired soon, or retiring soon. And the structure of city government has kind of changed from that generation. So like our former director of public works was working in the Department of Public Works for 47 years. You know, that's his lifelong job. He started as a laborer and was then director. That's not really necessarily something that like the career path of people these days, I think, are not planning on working for the city for 47 years when they start. So yeah, I think a lot has changed in just like the way that careers in city government happen. But yeah, there are a lot of young people and a lot of really smart, passionate people, especially for directors. We usually do national searches at this point. Anytime there's a director opening at the city. So definitely try for the best and the brightest based on our limited city government funding, of course.
I mean, I could imagine a time when a national search, like there wouldn't be enough interest to do a national search. So like the fact that we can do a national search and bring people from other parts of the country is kind of a testament to the success of our city government.
Yeah, for sure. Allie, you raised your hand?
I did.
Thanks for raising your hand. I love it.
Yes, it's a good way to get noticed. And I also think that Zoom changed how you raise your hand, or maybe it just did in my account. I don't know. I had a Zoom update. So I think if I think back to the budget presentation about the operating and capital budget and the share of the operating budget dedicated to personnel, like if we think that full, staffing of these important operations like is important, then like we see the important, cost that covers it, and the ability to retain people, whether it's for, a long career or a short career, seems really important to me. So if I think about Matt's comment and connect it back to the budget presentation, like the ability to support people over a career is very much, I think, in the interest of institutional knowledge and supporting people who have good ideas within city government.
Yeah, thank you, Allie. That's a really good point. I think sometimes it's hard, especially with city government. You can look up at any given time all the personnel who work for the city of Pittsburgh, all of their salaries. All of that information is transparent and public. I think sometimes it can be hard to justify those kinds of things. When in city government, like there are so many priorities and kind of like the Office of Management and Budget said in their first session, like you're going to do one thing, you're going to take away from another. And so I agree with you that that is a very important piece of our operating budget. And, I hope that we can continue to support that as well. Corey, you wanna?
Yeah, Allie had asked a question earlier that I wanted to make sure. I was trying to type it up, but I figured it'd be easier if I just said it. One of the question that Allie asked is like, how do we keep constituents more engaged, post this class and have them more involved in government and everything? And there's really not an answer to that. I mean, it's you all signed up for this class because you wanted to, right? Like nobody forced you to do it, and so you can't force your neighbors to care. I mean, really. But if you do come by people that do care, I mean, I think some of the things that I mean, if it was me, and after spending 4 years and working in government and trying to navigate it, I mean, you got to know who your council member is. That's like priority number one, is like, you got to know who your council member is, and you got to maintain a relationship with that person and their staff. Be considerate too, because, council is really understaffed and under budgeted, and that's just an unfortunate reality. I think a city government is that's the case. So oftentimes council members only have 2 people in their office or 3 people in their knowing so knowing who your council member is, I would say, is priority number 1. Knowing the number to Office of Community Affairs, I think is extremely important. Knowing how to use 311, knowing how to use all the applications that have been created in the past since the beginning of this administration, honestly. I mean, Bird's Eye View, all the Building Eye, all these applications that are now available really help to keep people informed on what's going on with the priorities in their neighborhood. Especially now that you have multiple ways of being able to track your concerns and your issues with the city. I mean, I think it's important for more people to know how to use those applications. And then finally, like with if anything that you can get your neighbors to participate in, I think annually, just once a year, go to the budget hearings. I mean, I've helped, the Office of Community Affairs and I know at least when I was there, it was our responsibility to put these meetings together along with the Office of Budget. And, so we put out the invite, we tell everybody, we put it out there, and, there still would be 20 to 30 people in a meeting. And then people wonder why things aren't getting done the way they wanted it to. When it comes to the budget, the cities and the mayor's office and city council and all the departments take a lot of things into consideration. They take your 311 calls into consideration. The mayor's office also reaches out to every single council member and asks them, where do you think the most priorities are? Which is why I say, stay in touch with your council member. They look at all those reports that you're submitting to the city. And so, the city has partnered closely with like CMU and, the office, what's the office, Leah, the innovation and performance. They've learned to collect all this data to figure out how do we prioritize our budget every year. And, I don't want to go too far back, but it wasn't that long ago, the city was almost bankrupt in the early 2000s. And so we've gotten ourselves out of Act 47. I don't know if you've learned about Act 47, but literally our budget was controlled by the state. And so now we finally have an ability to spend more money, really, and hire more people and increase the wages of city employees. Our park systems are getting better. Our roads are getting paved more often, even though it seems like they're not. I think the infrastructure is really it's really turning around a lot. But if you're going to add input, always call your council member's office, be nice to them. Always use 311. The Office of Community Affairs is always there to help. And attend that budget meeting every year, I think is one way you can really have a say in how the budget goes, because like I said, the city does take all that into consideration whenever figuring out how to spend the money. Oh, and then also for the people that are where's my money going? I also love the website that the Office of Budget, I don't know if you all got a chance to use it, where you put in how much you make in income a year and how much is going towards police, how much is going towards, public safety, public works, your mayor, how much is going into the mayor's office out of your taxes. Has everybody tried that application before? Yeah.
Yes.
I think those are great things, just to, it's public, so it's utilize it. It's there. No, sorry, that's it.
Yeah, no, that was super helpful. I think those are some really tangible takeaways that really haven't been stated that way before in CLA. So I think that's super helpful, Corey, and I couldn't agree more. Although I will say that we did get up to at least 150 participants in the last in-person budget meeting. So that's good. Of course, there's a bit of a meet people where they are element to that, but yeah, appreciate those items. And Larry.
I was going to save this for the evaluation, but it really ties into everything Corey was just talking about. I don't think there's a week or a department that we could have done without, but I would like to see the program expanded for another session. I'm not shy about asking questions, and I have engaged a couple of people on some detailed issues from different departments, and in those cases, I ran into a problem where, okay, this is how the department works, and what I want to see done or what people in my community need is outside the scope of what the department heads can do. They have policies and they follow the policies, and what I really need to do on those issues is bring about legislative change. And I think a session that, Corey packed into our last 5 minutes as a class, something that I think should be expanded into a real focused session. We had a nice talk from a council member at the outset, kind of to launch the course, but I'd like to hear from more of them and their staffers. when we need something changed legislatively, when we need new rules or different rules, what's the most effective way to go about that? How many people do we need to get on a petition to get a council member's attention? That sort of thing, practical advice on how to bring about constructive change. I think that would be an addition that would help us to be more effective advocates.
Yeah, that's something that is on my mind a lot. So I'm not surprised to hear that. But yeah, thank you for that feedback. I think we probably can all agree that that would be super helpful. I have thought about making our city government 101, that first session with the mayor and council, a little bit more focused rather than kind of rapid fire. So hopefully we can make that happen. And of course, like, we can continue to be in touch. Since this cohort is heading out, we can continue to be in touch and try to work through some of those things as well. But I do appreciate the feedback. Thank you, Larry. Okay, and Karen agrees. Awesome. Cool. And then I think, so everyone seemed pretty interested in a potential coffee or happy hour, potentially at Dan and Jamie's new coffee shop. That sounds wonderful once COVID has passed to a safe level. I would love to meet you all in person and chat a little bit more. So I can definitely keep in touch and try and coordinate something like that. I will send that email with everyone on it. I'll give a little heads up just in case somebody does not, for some reason, want to be contacted. But yeah, that's all we've got. And I thank you all again. Thanks so much for sticking it out. I know we're kind of like a small group tonight, but there's usually more of us. And thanks for sticking with us.
Hey, thanks for
Claps
doing
for you.
this.
Oh, emoji claps for you.
Yeah, definitely. Big claps. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're a great MC throughout this whole thing. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Leah.
It's there.
Thank you.
Yeah, everything's been very mundane, and this was actually like something I look forward to every week. It was like something different that was happening. So I'm glad that this happened, even though it was all on Zoom.
Good, me too. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. We'll be in touch.